Welcome to another episode of Learning with Human Kinetics. My name is Aaron, and today's topic is going to look at the benefits of exercise and physical activity, but not in the sense that we usually discuss it. Typically, when we think about physical activity and its benefits, we think about the aesthetic benefits, like losing fat or building muscle. Like a couple of our authors, Pete McCall and Nick Tuminello, have mentioned in their previous episodes of Author Talk. People exercise because they want to look better naked. That's their words, and it's really true. A lot of people exercise specifically to look better physically. But aesthetics aren't the only reason that we exercise. Many people do and should exercise for better health. Now, we want to prevent or reduce the risk of chronic disease, stay away from things like high blood pressure and diabetes and heart disease, and for reasons that go beyond aesthetics, prevent obesity. But there's still another reason to stay physically active, and that is what I'm going to talk about today. Believe it or not, there are psychological benefits of exercise and physical activity. More specifically, I'll discuss how exercise and physical activity affect things like anxiety, depression, and cognitive performance. Now, let's start with anxiety. Now, first I'll ask, have you ever experienced anxiety? Do you know what anxiety is? The American Psychological Association defines anxiety as, quote, an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increase in blood pressure. If you've ever had recurring fears or worries but aren't sure why or what the cause might be, you might have experienced anxiety. Now, it can be so severe that it affects your ability to perform daily tasks. Some examples might be worrying about your finances. Maybe you are overwhelmed by the amount of work that you have to do at your job or in other areas of your life. Maybe you're worried you aren't performing as well as you should at work. This is all classified as anxiety. Now, if those worries or fears are persistent, it could be diagnosed as general anxiety disorder. It's not something to take lightly. General anxiety disorder can be so severe that you are unable to function because you are so consumed by every possible negative outcome of a situation. Now, a lot of times the things we worry about in these situations never happen anyway, but that doesn't stop these feelings from happening. And if these thoughts continue most days for at least 6 months, it's considered to be a disorder. Now, according to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, general anxiety disorder affects 6.8 million adults, or about 3.1% of the U.S. population. The National Institute of Mental Health reports that an estimated 19.1% of U.S. adults had an anxiety disorder in the past year. Now, while that number might seem high, an estimated 31.9% of teens were reported as having an anxiety disorder, and among them, 8.3% had severe impairment. Now, there are different ways a person might experience anxiety, and one type is state anxiety or acute anxiety. Now, in this case, you might be worried about an upcoming test or a presentation or an upcoming game or competition where you don't feel fully prepared. In the event of state anxiety, the extreme feelings or worries might go away during the event or immediately following the event. Now, this type of anxiety can be managed with techniques like deep breathing. I had an Author Talk interview not too long ago with Harvey Martin for his book, Breathe, Focus, Excel, where he talks specifically about controlling your breathing and taking control of your situation so that you can get back to a level of performance that you're capable of. Other techniques are things like finding ways to control negative thoughts and even imagining yourself in a successful situation, which is likely the opposite of the way that you're feeling about the upcoming event. Now, trait anxiety, on the other hand, is referred to as chronic anxiety. It's much less common compared to acute anxiety. Now, trait anxiety can last up to 6 months or longer and affects daily living. It's considered to be a clinical form of anxiety disorder. A study conducted in 2013 showed results of state anxiety had decreased after participating in 30 minutes of moderate intensity cycling. That is one specific example, but the results of a collection of 49 studies showed that anxiety was moderately reduced in exercise groups as compared to no treatment control groups. So overall, the results are promising that exercise can yield benefits when treating anxiety, and it's a more cost-effective way to deal with anxiety compared to medication. There are also no negative side effects like the ones that a lot of people might see taking certain types of medication. Now, on the flip side, by exercising to control your anxiety, you can benefit in other ways that I mentioned before. Commonly discussed in the same conversation as anxiety is depression. Now, depression can be either short-term or long-term and can range from relatively mild experiences to much more severe and even clinical cases. Now, according to the World Health Organization, 3.8% of the population experience depression. Now, that includes 2.8% of teens aged 15 to 19, 5% of adults, and 5.7% of adults aged 60 or older. Now, to put those percentages into perspective, about 280 million people in the world have depression, and unfortunately, it's about 50% more common in women compared to men. Now, I say that and give you those statistics to know that if you feel you have depression or start to feel any of the symptoms of depression, you aren't alone. And the good news is there are ways to help reduce those symptoms. So what are the symptoms? Symptoms of depression might include feelings of sadness, low motivation, and apathy. It can be caused by a variety of reasons, and in some cases depression can be more severe than others. Clinical depression is when someone may feel depressed regularly for at least 2 weeks. Now, this means an individual might have feelings of low self-esteem or self-loathing. The American Psychological Association states that people who are depressed might experience lack of interest and enjoyment in daily activities. Now, this might be followed by unintended weight gain or loss, insomnia or excessive sleeping, lack of energy and inability to concentrate, excessive guilt, and recurrent thoughts of death or suicide. So we know what depression is on its surface, but why does it happen? What is going on in our bodies that makes us feel that way? In simple terms, and it goes much deeper than this, I recognize this, but monoamine neurotransmitters consisting of things like serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine play a role in the symptoms of depression. Now, evidence suggests that deficiencies in serotonin receptors are linked to depression. And studies have supported the idea that exercise can help produce monoamines, which then bolster the neurotransmitters. So monoamines are typically at low levels in people that are depressed. So in simple terms, you can increase the level of these neurotransmitters by exercising and reduce or completely get rid of the symptoms that make you feel depressed. It was originally thought that the benefits of exercise on depression could go beyond, or could be because, the exercise simply got people away from the work or whatever was making them feel depressed or worry or have negative thoughts. This might be true, but it's not supported by research because the benefits of physical activity or exercise outweigh the benefits of other activities helping the person take time away from their daily struggles. Now, while anxiety and depression are both very serious, cognitive performance is an important factor to consider in psychological benefits of exercise. Now, when we speak of cognitive performance, we're talking about performance on tasks that require mental processing. There are a lot of ways to assess cognitive performance, and one is when taking a test. A test is an opportunity to obviously demonstrate your knowledge of a specific subject area. As we age, there are normal changes in our cognitive performance, and that usually means a decline. The common term for this decline is dementia. You've most likely heard of dementia. The most common form of dementia is actually Alzheimer's, and it accounts for 60 to 80% of dementia cases. It's distinguished from other forms of dementia because it's a progressive illness that involves the buildup of plaques in the brain and that block nerve signals or destroy nerve cells. That's a simplistic way to describe it, but for the sake of this talk, I'm not going to go too in-depth in those areas. But more than 11% of adults over the age of 65 and 13.8% of adults 75 to 84 suffer from it. That number increases to almost 35% for those over the age of 85. Now, overall, Alzheimer's affects about 6 million Americans and 50 million people worldwide. It's predicted that that total will double among Americans and increase to 152 million in the world by 2050. Now, research suggests that increasing the amount of exercise increases the cognitive benefits of physical activity. In the short term, there have been benefits from exercise after a single session. So in this case, the effects are more acute, like working out and then going to take a test. Now, research supports the idea that there are enough cognitive benefits in the short term that a person can benefit from physical activity in that scenario. A 2012 study showed that the benefits can last as long as 24 hours after a single workout. Now, another study published in 2017 and research at North Carolina State University examined the relationship between physical activity and academic success. This study followed the activity habits and the academic performance of 21,000 undergraduate students and found that an increase of 1 extra hour per week of exercise resulted in a 0.06 improvement in total grade point average. Now, that's a relatively small increase, but an increase nonetheless. Now, the study also found that the odds of graduating rose by 49%. Which sounds much more significant. Now, the author of this study noted that even though a 1 hour per week increase in physical activity per week produced a 0.06 improvement in GPA, think about it, adding 3 hours could increase the GPA by 0.18. And that's a much more significant improvement and could change the trajectory of a student's college experience. Now, this isn't only important for teens and college-age students. A 2003 meta-analysis focused exclusively on adults aged 55 to 80, and the results showed that overall there was a positive effect of exercise on cognitive performance. Now, this is important because, as we know, in many cases, there's an age-related cognitive decline that adults experience. Mental tasks become more challenging. I remember as a kid, seeing adults walk into a room and say that they forgot why they were in there. Now, usually I laughed and I always thought it was a joke, but then I eventually realized that it actually happens for some adults as they age. But the great news is that if we exercise, we can see improvement over time in our cognitive performance. Another study, a 2018 study, had participants exercise for a total of 52 hours. Not all at once, but this was a routine of about 1 hour per day for 3 days a week over the course of 20 weeks. Now, the participants saw cognitive benefits, but an interesting note is that those who exercised less than 32 hours over that time did not see improvement. So while it's important to stay active for so many reasons, and a lot of times we say that anything's better than nothing, in this case, there was a threshold of the amount of activity needed to see lasting cognitive benefits. Now, the bottom line on all this is based on research, is that there are benefits to exercise beyond aesthetics and physiological health. By simply exercising and staying physically active, we can lower levels of anxiety, control and even eliminate symptoms of depression, and improve our cognitive function. In the first two, it isn't only our minds that are at risk, but as I laid out briefly, there are other risks associated with high levels of anxiety and depression. On the cognitive side, we've always heard the saying, the mind is the first thing to go when speaking to someone who is aging and might see a decline in health. As we've seen today and through research, it is possible to combat those signs of aging with exercise. So whether you're getting ready to take a test or prepping for a competition and feel a bit of anxiety or want to boost your brain power going in, or if you're in a season where you feel a bit of depression, go get a quick workout. But I would say don't stop there. Improve your situation with one workout and then build on it, making that habit over time so you can see the psychological benefits of physical activity long term. Now, for more information on this and other similar topics, I would definitely recommend the Psychological Benefits of Exercise and Physical Activity. That is a book that we have here at Human Kinetics. There's a ton of great information in the text, not only on what I talked about today, but also on how exercise impacts stress, self-esteem, body image, sleep and sleep quality, and your overall quality of life. So, of course, stay up to date on the latest research in our Human Kinetics journals and keep in touch through our social media channels. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll also find more information in our email newsletters, including more information like this, as well as notices on sales and promotions. So thanks for spending a little bit of time with me to learn about some of the benefits of exercise and physical activity that we don't always talk about. Until next time, be well.